Here we have the Manchester United squad. This is the squad in its entirety, and today we're going to be going through and having a look for 3 players that they must sell this summer. Before we do that, let's have a talk about Manchester United and discuss what they want going forwards. When we think about Erik ten Hag and the way that he likes to play and the way he likes his sides to play, it's all about progressing the ball forwards, domination in possession, and making sure that they have the correct minerals going forwards to be able to be both sturdy at the back and make sure that they can open up opportunities going forwards. With that in mind, let's scroll up here, because I do think there is a conversation that could be had about Dean Henderson. I'm not going to say that they need to sell him this year or this summer, but a couple of things really do come to mind. He's 26 years old now, and when you think about the promise that he had all of those years ago coming through as a youngster, has he fulfilled that potential? I'd argue no. And then you have a look at Transfermarkt's market value for him of 22 million euros. Now, this is not exactly everything that you should be going off. However, it is a general benchmark to be able to work things out on. And really, 22 million isn't that bad at all. He's wanted by Nottingham Forest, who he was on loan at. And if you can get them to pay anywhere near that, I think it might be worth taking it and then reinvesting it in someone else, possibly a little bit younger, perhaps better with the ball at his feet, perhaps a Diogo Costa, or a player of that ilk. David Raya is a bit too expensive at 40 million in my opinion, with 1 year left on his contract. However, if you can negotiate with Brentford and try to get that down, that's another option. So I'd have a question mark over Dean Henderson, but he's not the first player I'm going to put forwards. No, the first player I'm going to put forwards is Fred. It's got to be Fred. Erik ten Hag has proven that he doesn't really like Fred in his midfield. He's used him on certain occasions. However, I just don't quite think he has the minerals to be able to take Manchester United forwards. I don't think he has the passing capability to be able to really break the lines. He's good running, but I think generally and gradually Erik ten Hag has actually transitioned Fred out of his team more often than not. He's 30 years old, which means that his value is only going to be decreasing year on year, and according to Transfermarkt, he's still got 20 million euros worth of value. And when you consider the fact that Manchester United paid a ridiculous £50 million fee, which is just absurd, but I mean, prices for Manchester United just need to be taken with a pinch of salt. But I think Fred, you could offload him fairly simply. I think that teams in the Premier League would take him. I could see him doing a wondrous job at Fulham, honestly. I think Fulham should really think about going for him. You can get him for decent money. He's still got some experience. He enjoys playing in the Premier League, and he's also got some serious quality. Fulham, genuinely, think about it. But if we have a look at some of his stats, because I think that's important as well, let's have a look at Fred's statistics. Here we are. This is compared against other midfielders in Europe's top 5 leagues. And you might think, there's a lot of green here for a central defensive midfielder. I agree with you. There is a lot of green. Tackles, very good, 97th percentile. This is fantastic. However, I want to pay attention to this. This right here. Passes attempted. 53 per 90. He's in the 61st percentile. That's not good enough. I'm sorry, it's just not. Pass completion at 80%, 38th percentile. That's not good enough for Manchester United. And then you go a little bit further down and you see progressive carries, 0.76 per 90. Again, not good enough, 23rd percentile. For me, Fred must go this summer, and they need to get some kind of money back for some of the extra weight, some of the dead wood in this squad. And unfortunately for Fred, I believe he is one of them. Moving on, let's have a look back at this team sheet again. Another one of the players that I believe they need to be getting rid of is Harry Maguire. It's got to be. It's got to be. This is in no particular order, by the way. If it was in a particular order, Harry Maguire would be my number 1. You need to get him off the books as quickly as possible. He needs to be sold. I've heard Tottenham Hotspur are interested. Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, go get him. Go get him. I actually think he'd be fine at Tottenham. I actually think that he's a good defender. I just don't think he's given himself enough help in certain situations. The £80 million price tag was far too much. It's put far too much pressure on him, and he just isn't just worth that, if we're honest. He's 30 years old. He's only going to decrease in value. He's apparently been rated at 25 million euros, which is just horrendous when you still consider that 80 million price tag. He's got to go. Let's have a look at his stats, because really, he's got to go. I'm sorry. You cannot be a defender for Manchester United and average one tackle a game. One tackle. One. He's in the 15th percentile. He doesn't have the pace. He doesn't have the real passing ability, as is shown here. Pass completion, 52nd percentile at 85%. Now, 85% sounds quite high, but really, that's not great, if we're honest. Progressive passes out from the back, 3 per 90 in the 47th percentile. If we think about Lisandro Martinez, he does a far greater job. And then there's the bigger issue that's in all of this. And the bigger issue is if I scroll up here, it will show that he has a wages of £190,000 a week. Now, this might not be incredibly accurate, but it will give us a general idea. 190k a week is madness. Get him off the books, get him gone, move on. Just take the hit, take the loss, and assume and accept that you made a mistake. Harry Maguire, for me, must go. And that leaves one more spot, which is actually more difficult than I expected it to be. But the final spot is going to go to Scott McTominay. I think Manchester United need to overhaul their midfield entirely. I just don't think it's there. And unfortunately for Scott McTominay, while I do like him as a player, I do like his physicality, and I do think that he's decent in the correct environment, I just don't quite think he's there. 26 years old is a decent age. He should be in his prime. And he's been injured quite a bit this season. But 25 million euros isn't that bad. And we know that Newcastle are interested. We know that they're looking at him. We know that Eddie Howe has plans. And in my mind, I don't think Erik ten Hag should be really trying to stop him from leaving. Because while I do think he's good, he's not a Casemiro, obviously. He doesn't necessarily have the creative quality of a Bruno or one of the youngsters coming through. So I'm not too sure in his place. He doesn't have the defensive capabilities of a Casemiro either. He doesn't really read the game from a defensive perspective, even though he's labelled as a defensive midfielder. And then we can have a look at some of his stats as well, because I just don't quite think he's got the quality. I love his efforts, and I love the fact that he's come through the academy, and it makes for a really good story. But I think Manchester United can do better. And when you see that he's attempted 36 passes per 90, I will say this is on 1,298 minutes as well, which is far less than a lot of others. But he's made just a pass completion of 81%. And I was criticising Maguire for the 85% pass completion, but that puts McTominay in the 46th percentile against midfielders in his position in Europe's top 5 leagues, and that's nowhere near good enough. Nowhere near good enough. Progressive passes, which is the worst one here, honestly, of 2.7 per 90. Progressive passes, that's passing forwards. Think about that, forwards. Just forwards. 2.7 per 90. He's in the 6th percentile. The 6th. That's criminal. I'm sorry. Scott McTominay has a lot of effort, he has a lot of drive, he has a lot of determination, and he actually, defensively, in certain scenarios, is actually pretty good in a certain system. Which is why I think he would actually be perfect for Eddie Howe's Newcastle. I think there's a reason why Eddie Howe's been looking at him. He can rejuvenate him, drive, determination, energy. He can position him in certain scenarios in ways that I don't think Erik ten Hag can. I just don't think he fits the profile, I don't think they fit each other, and for that reason, among others that we've just discussed, Scott McTominay must be sold. And those are the 3 that I would first go towards. Harry Maguire, Fred, and Scott McTominay, which would give an option for some of the young players like Zidane Iqbal, some players like Hannibal to come through. They then have the option to really start to drive forward, start to take their spots, and it also gives an option for other midfielders to come into the club and just improve the general overall quality of the team in itself and of the squad. Harry Maguire leaving would give options for other players to come through. What is going on with Axel Tuanzebe? We are not sure. What's going on with Teddy Mingi? We're not sure. But in certain scenarios, Harry Maguire has proven that he's not quite there. He's been moved out of his position by Luke Shaw, coming in from left-back as centre-back. Erik ten Hag prefers Shaw over Maguire at centre-back, and that should tell you everything you need to know. But those are my 3 players that I believe Manchester United must sell this summer. It has to happen, and it has to happen to be able to get the squad and the team to progress forwards. And that should begin the Manchester United rebuild.